Hi, John. I want to welcome you, first of all, and thank you, of course, for finding time and be today with us. Because, as you know, a lot of Russian people first reading your book. Now, second, they doing your course, which is unbelievable. And I'm also doing the course, and that's how we got an idea to make this little interview. So. Because we get a lot of questions from people who want to know your opinion about things that are important for their life. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, first of all, spasiba, and thank you, Victoria, for inviting me. It's wonderful. I have a great audience in Russia, and I'm very appreciative of it. And I've, as you're aware, I've toured Russia many times, and so any opportunity to reach out to my Russian audience is a great opportunity for me, and I'm very grateful that you're giving me this format to speak to your audience.
First of all, I had an idea, and I wanted to do this interview on my Instagram because I have 7 million people there, and we wanted to do live. And then we changed the mind because I thought it would be easier if I can translate it later, because not everybody understands English. And then I asked them to write questions for you, and I got hundreds of questions, and all of them are so interesting and so good. And it was very difficult for me to choose few of them, about 8 of the questions, and I choose the ones I think they were repeating a lot, and I have them all in here. And so let's start. And first question, it sounds like, is that true that prior to writing your book Mind Power, you were living in the woods?
Yeah, I've had a very interesting life. It's what happened is when I was in my mid-20s, I started to read and research everything I could on the powers of the mind. And there wasn't that much available back then. And at a certain point, I realized that I had all the knowledge that I could get from book learning, and what I really needed to do is to consolidate it. And then I had this wild and crazy idea. And we must trust wild and crazy ideas, because very often that's our subconscious and that's our intuition speaking to us. And the wild and crazy idea was that I was going to go out into the woods and build myself a cabin and just spend my time really connecting with my subconscious and consolidating all this information that I was gathering from books. Now, I had always been a city person. I had never spent any time in the woods. So it was like a real adventure. And so I drove out to British Columbia, which is the other side of Canada. And I had some friends out there, and I started looking at different places in the woods, and I found a beautiful place right on a pond. And over a couple months, with help of friends, I built a very basic cabin there. And it was just so extraordinary. It was so amazing. Because what it was is that I was away from everything. And so at night I would hear the beavers building a dam. I would hear the frogs. I would hear the crickets, and in the daytime the animals and the birds. And it was just very serene and very peaceful. And it was during this time, and I spent 3 years in the woods. Now, I better correct that a little bit. When I say I spent 3 years, it wasn't like I never went out. My cabin was at about a kilometer walk in from the end of a dead-end road. So once a week I would go into town and visit friends and buy groceries and that. But for the rest of the week, there I was back in the woods. And it was during this time that my subconscious mind really kicked in. And this is when a lot of the information that I teach in my books and my courses didn't come from book learning. It came from information that my subconscious was supplying me. So that was an extraordinary time of my life. It was a time of destiny, and fate and destiny always call to us at different stages of our life, and we have to be open enough to trust it and act upon what it's asking us to do. So yeah, it was an extraordinary time.
Amazing. Sounds like fun, and of course not everybody will be able to do that. Okay, so that's good to know where you started from, because a lot of people, you will see from the questions, who live the simple life and they think it's impossible to change their life. But I think your example shows the opposite. So the second question would be, how do you forgive your parents for abandoning you, for leaving you on your own? I think that's a good question to know, because a lot of kids were dealing with this. My father left when I was 2, so.
Yeah. I think a lot of us have issues around our parents because our parents weren't perfect, and no, unlike us, that of course are very perfect parents. First of all, regarding forgiveness, who benefits from forgiveness? Not the person being forgiven. The forgiver benefits. So why would you want to forgive your parents, or why would you want to forgive anybody that has harmed you, or that you think has wronged you in some way? Why would you ever want to forgive them? You forgive them because the benefit comes to you. Because if you don't forgive them, what happens? That means that you're living in resentment, you're living in hurt, you're living in anger, you're projecting that all the problems you're having in life are theirs. Well, how does that help you? It doesn't help you in any way. In fact, it hinders you. And all your resentment, all your self-pity, all your anger, I mean, this is real energy and vibrations, and this is having an effect on your life. So what you do is you forgive, first of all, because you realize that will be of great benefit to you. Secondly, you cut your parents some slack. You realize, of course, all of us, that have children, you realize that none of us are perfect. And you don't really appreciate how difficult it is to raise children until you have them on your own. So your parents made mistakes, so be it. Love them, accept them for being flawed, because you're flawed too. And also realize that you never fully realize the benefit that comes from some of the mistakes, and you overcoming the wounds, the sacred wounds that happen to you. You end up overcoming them in very, very unique ways. Let me give you an example. When my wife Sylvia, when she was 5 years of age, what happened is she was in a toy store, and with her family and her parents and her brothers and sisters, and she's going down the different aisles looking at the different toys. And then she happened to look out the window of the store, and what she saw is she saw her mom and dad and her brothers and sisters get into the car and drive away. And she was just devastated, and she cried and cried and cried. And of course, the people in the store, what happened? And she told them what happened. And they said, well, do you know your address? And of course, her mom had taught her her address. And so they called the police, and the police came, and the police drove her back home. But rather than taking her immediately in, they left her in the police car, and the policeman went up to the house and knocked on the door, and her mother came to the door, and the policeman said, are you missing one of your children? And her mom said no. So she's listening to this, and she was absolutely crushed by that, because she felt that her parents didn't love her, and that you know, they didn't miss her. Now, what really happened is, of course, she
Was
had
it by
five
the
brothers
accident,
and
right?
sisters. They just didn't notice that she wasn't around.
Oh, okay.
But what happened is a very interesting reaction. From that, she decided, I'm going to make myself so great. I'm going to be so accomplished that they will never not notice me again. And so from that, what happened is it built her into a young woman, and now a mature woman that is a real go-getter, that is really accomplished. And so every imprint that happens, we can take it one way or the other. So no matter what relationship that you had with your parents, you can turn it into a positive if you choose, or you can have it drag you down. But that's what mind power is all about, is it's learning how to be creative with your thoughts and reactions and making every situation serve you.
That's actually the next question is going to, it's fitting perfectly in this story. Is that true that using the power of mind, of the thoughts, we can change not only our own life, but the entire world as well?
Well, this is the whole basis of mind power, and the basis of my teaching, both in my books and my online training, is that we are connected to everything. And this is not John Kehoe's theory. This is what quantum physics tells us,
Right.
is that we are connected to everything, and that as a result of that, our thoughts, our beliefs, our actions, everything that we do is having an effect in our life. And for example, one of the very basic and first things that I teach my students is that we are living simultaneously in two worlds: the inner world of our thoughts and the outer world of the circumstances and situations that happen to us. And in the 6 laws of the mind, that is one of the laws, that the inner and outer worlds are connected. Now, this is revolutionary to most people. Most people don't realize that I'm connected to everything, and that my thoughts have an influence in what happens to me. And actually, Victoria, I think that is probably the biggest turning point in anyone's life. The greatest thing that can ever happen to you, the greatest experience, much greater than the first time that you had sex, much greater than you making $1 million. The greatest thing that can ever happen to you is when you realize that my thoughts create my reality. And first of all, it comes as a concept. You have to accept it as a concept. but then you have to move beyond the concept. And that's where training comes in, where you don't just read a book about it, you actually train your mind and you practice and experience and experiment with the techniques that I teach. And when you do that, you will prove to yourself that you have personal power. And I want to say to every single person that's watching this right now, I don't care what circumstance you're in right now. I don't care how down you are. I don't care how much money you have, whether you've lost your job, whether you're battling an illness, whether you have broken up with your spouse or your girlfriend or boyfriend. I don't care what situation you're in now. You can completely turn that around by working with your mind and working with your thoughts. It's not just positive thinking. This is a real science. And when you realize for the very first time that I have personal power in my life, and you actually work with the techniques and see how they work in your life will never be the same. And that's why I have committed my life to teaching people these principles.
Yeah, not so many people can go and do the course, because I know that today, especially with this hard time, what's going on, a lot of people feel so down, they lost their work and they can't afford anything. And I like this question because I just felt as would be myself when I was living back then in Siberia and being just a simple girl, but had my dreams, of course. How can an ordinary person start to believe that our subconscious is actually affecting us and our lives? What's the first step would you recommend to do in order to take that step and say, yes, it works? Because to me, it took a while. It took years when I first realized that, yes, I was dreaming about it. It came true. And then another year. And then sometimes it took months and then weeks and then days, but it was gradually, growing. And what's the first step they should do and how to start to believe in that?
Well, the first step is to understand the concept of it. And my books are readily available. I mean, in Russia, I think they say that there's over 10 million copies of my books out there. So it's very easy to get a hold of my books and to read one. And from that, you may choose to do the online training or not. But I mean, you start with the book, you start with understanding the concepts. And then experiment with it for yourself. One of the affirmations that I like to use is my subconscious is my partner in success. And I like that a lot because it has two keys there. The first is by just saying to yourself, my subconscious, the conscious mind kind of goes, oh, I have another mind. Because the conscious mind really has a hard time understanding that there's anything other than itself. The conscious mind thinks it's the only one there. But no, it's not the only one there. There's a second mind. I mean, think about that. This is so extraordinary that you have a second mind. And so as you become really interested in that, then you say, well, if I have a second mind, how is it working? And you discover that actually your subconscious is working day and night. And it operates by programs, inner programs. Well, what are these inner programs? Now, here's something that really is important. Any thought, any belief, any image that you repeat over and over and over again will take an imprint into the subconscious. So how you program your subconscious is just spending time every day imprinting messages, whether it be through affirmations, whether it be through visualizations, whether it be through imprinting a new belief into your mind, is that you commit yourself to training your mind and doing some exercises every day. And it's a lot like working out in the gym. I mean, we know when we're out of shape physically. We know that, you know, we look in the mirror or we go to the gym and we can hardly do any exercises without being exhausted. We know when we're out of shape physically. What we don't realize is that a lot of us are really out of shape mentally too. And this is why we're depressed. And this is why we're anxious. And this is why we feel hopeless. If any of this is ringing true to you, if you are indeed feeling depressed or hopeless or don't know what to do with your life or really fearful, that's a signal. That's a signal that your mind is not working for you the way it's been designed to work. So be committed to making the changes in your life, because nobody can change your life for you. You and only you can change your life. So be committed to making a difference in your mind. Be committed to doing something every day. Be committed to a vision of the person that you intend to become, or the goals that you want to achieve, and regularly imprint into the subconscious, because the subconscious will take anything that is repeated to it over and over and over again. This is how I have done it. This is how you have done it, Victoria. This is how every successful man or woman has ever done it. It doesn't happen by chance. It happens by you taking control of your life. And there is no better or easier way of taking control of your life than taking control of your mind.
Thank you so much. There is a question from a single mom, and being a single mom, not being able to have a support, a nanny, even sometimes your mom cannot help you. I mean, being single and always being with your child. The question is, how can I become more tolerant of my child? How to stop screaming and not to take it out on them? I think it's a very, very good question for those who they can't control themselves sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing I would do is cut yourself a little slack for not being perfect. One of the big things often in parenting is that we're trying to be the perfect mother, or we're trying to be the perfect father, or we're trying to be the perfect parent. And perfect is an illusion. So you are going to make mistakes. And so first of all, cut yourself some slack right there. Secondly, notice that, you know, why do I do that? Why do I erupt? Why am I angry? Why do I get so upset with my child? And you realize, well, actually, they're not perfect either. So you cut them some slack as well, and you can use mind power to imagine yourself in situations that usually you overreact, where your child does something and you just explode automatically. Imagine in your mind your child, you know, being disobedient or acting up, or you know, I mean, they're kids. Come on, this is all part of being a child. But instead of you exploding, instead of you reacting in your normal way, actually, you just take your child aside and you speak to them very calmly. I didn't appreciate what you did. Why don't you do it this way? And just being very, very calm. Now, if in your mind you visualize yourself reacting like that, then what will happen is the next time that you have an incident, rather than exploding, because that imprint of you doing that over and over again will be your natural reaction. Or a very simple affirmation that I am tolerant with my child. I am loving, kind, and tolerant. So you add the word tolerant into the affirmation. And what we find is that whatever you repeat to yourself as an affirmation, that will be how you will react. And so by programming your mind in this way, you will find that you actually will be more tolerant, you will be more accepting. No, you won't be perfect. That will never happen. But you will be a much better person, and you'll feel better about yourself as well.
Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes we have these down moments, and sometimes we try to work hard and concentrate on being good, and it works. But there are also times when you just feel that everything is going down, and the question is, what do you do when you face in all good things weakness or fades away?
Could you just repeat the question? I didn't quite understand it.
Sorry. What do you do when your face in all the good weakness or fades away?
I got it. Okay. You know, sometimes in life we lose faith, and we wonder, is there any goodness in the world, or who can I trust, or everything is not working out. And if you find that you are losing faith in the goodness of humanity and the goodness of the world, then what I would suggest is, why don't you be the goodness? Why don't you be the source of goodness in the world? And it was Gandhi who said, be the goodness that you want to see in the world. And so what you do is, why don't you be a source of loving kindness for others? And as you become a source of loving kindness for others and bringing goodness into the world, and when I say bringing goodness into the world, that's rather esoteric and abstract. I mean, bringing goodness into your circle of friends, your parents, your friends, your friends' children, being a source of goodness in the world. And if you're a source of goodness in the world, then what will happen is that you will start to see and notice it in other people as well. There's a very interesting parable that I think illustrates this perfectly. And there was an old man that was at the gate of an ancient city, and thousands of people were flocking into the city every day because there was pestilence and war happening in the country, and they were fleeing this, and they were coming into the city. And anyways, one man stopped at the gate. He saw the old man, and he said, what are the people like in this new city that I'm coming to? And the old man said to him, what were the people like in the city that you came from? And he said, oh, the people were terrible. They lied, they cheated, they robbed you. You had to be on guard constantly. You could never trust anybody. There was no goodness in the city that I came from. And the old man listened carefully, and he nodded, and he said, you'll find the people much the same here. And the man just shrugged with resignation and went into the city. About an hour later, another man stopped and saw the old man, and he asked him, he said, "What are the people like in this city that I'm coming to?" And the old man said, "What were they like in the city that you came from?" And he said, "Oh, people were wonderful. They were so generous. They were so loving. You could always count on somebody to give you a helping hand when you were down. They were wonderful, good, generous people." And the old man nodded and he said, "You'll find the people much the same here." And the principle is very clear, is that whatever you expect and is what you will receive. And so if you find yourself in a state where you feel that there's no goodness out there, or that people are not good, or you've lost faith in others or humanity, then that energy and vibration will attract more of that to you. But if you believe that, no, there's an immense amount of goodness and people are kind and people are loving, then that's what you will find as well. And if you can't see that, the fault is not in the world, the fault is not in other people, the fault is in yourself. And the remedy is there as well. Be the goodness that you want to see in the world. Start being a source of loving goodness.
Right, you give me goosebumps all over my body. You are so inspiring. That's amazing. Okay, I have a last question. And
Not just a pretty face, Victoria?
No, but you know, you feel the vibes, as you say, the vibrations, the energy. Oh my God, it's just covering everything. And I'm blushing, actually. It's a good sign. And the last question, I think it's very, I left it for the end because I think it bothers everybody. And this question is very important for this conversation. We're going to finish with this. How do you get rid of the eternal fear of having money, fear of having big money?
Just repeat the question so that I understand clearly what this person is.
How do you get rid of the fear of having no money? No money. Some people even afraid to have money, and I think to make big money, they think that big money brings problems, and a lot of people have constant fear of not having money.
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, let me talk a little bit about fear. What exactly is fear? Fear is your mind projecting exactly what you don't want to have happen to you. So if you have a fear of not having enough money, then what you're doing is you're imagining that you're not going to have any money. Or if you have a fear of having too much money and being too successful, then what you're imagining is that if I am successful, then people won't like me, or that there will be circumstances around that are counterproductive for me. So a couple things. Fear is normal. It is natural. You don't have to be afraid of fear. Now, that sounds funny, but it is a normal reaction in our mind when things are, especially during stressful times, that we have fear. So first of all, it's a normal reaction. Secondly, fear gets its energy from you. Now, this is crucial to understand, that the fuel of fear is the thoughts that you are giving it. So that what normally happens when we're fearful is that we emotionalize this. We think about it. It overcomes us. And so we think about it all the time. Well, that's the exact opposite of what you want to do. With fear, you want to acknowledge, okay, I have that fear, but don't give it any energy. Don't be thinking about it all the time. What you do, and here's a really good technique for people that find themselves fearful about anything, whether it's money, whether it's success, whether it's health, is that whatever it is you're fearful about, begin imagining the exact opposite. So if you're fearful about not having enough money, then begin imagining that, no, I am going to have money. I will be successful, and have those images in your mind. If you're fearful about being too successful and people not liking you, then no, imagine the exact opposite. Imagine yourself being successful, and people respect you, people love you, people admire you. It's a wonderful thing to be successful. In fact, I have a saying, and that is that my success helps many people and my failure helps no one. And is this true? Yes, it's absolutely true. So your desire for success will actually, if you base it upon, I'm going to be successful for others. Now, how is your success helping others? Well, if you're successful, you can employ others. If you're successful, you buy goods and services. If your product or service is valuable, then don't you want to get it out to millions of people? Wouldn't it be wonderful that they have this product or service? So always base your success upon helping other people. And here's the most beautiful part of all. Your subconscious mind is your partner in success. You are neurologically wired to be successful, and that you have a conscious mind, you have a subconscious mind, you have total free will to choose your thoughts, to choose your actions, to choose your goals. You can create your life in any way that you choose. So don't worry about fear. Fears will come throughout your life now and then. Just recognize that they're normal, and don't let them take over. They get their energy from you, and just be determined to be the best person that you can. And by the way, you decide what success is. Don't buy into society's definition of success. Society says, oh, people that are rich, people that are famous, people that are really accomplished, they're successful. Now, there's nothing wrong with being rich. There's nothing wrong with being successful or famous. I mean, those are all wonderful things, but that's not the only way of being successful. You can be a successful parent. You can be a successful spouse. You can be a successful friend. You can be a successful artist. You decide what success is. You and only you decide what a successful life looks like. But once you decide what it is, it's important that you succeed at it, because your success helps many people and your failure helps no one.
Right. Thank you so much. And just wanted to remind, because before it was what, 2 weeks ago or so, before I met you, I was on the phone with my friend, and we were discussing something, and I was like, what do you think I should do about that? And she was like, oh, I know you should get Jonom Keho's book, and you should read this book. And I was like, I was just reading his book. She's like, then you should read it again. And can you believe in 2 days, exactly in 2 days, I got a call from someone who told me that you have the course, which is starting in Russia, and it's in Russian. And then we got connected somehow. That's incredible. And I have to say, it works to me like this now, and it proves everything you say. And I want to thank you for that. I think I attracted you into my life, and of course, everything you do for us, for those who need that message, you know, it works for us. And I want to thank you one more time. Thank you so much. It was wonderful.
Oh, that's great, Victoria. And I love that little story that you just shared with me. And you're living proof of the power of the mind. And so that's great. I have really enjoyed the opportunity of reaching out both to you personally and to your audience as well.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day, and I hope to meet again one day.
Okay. Спасибо.
Спасибо. Ciao.